G'day, today's video, of course, is about decoction mashing. It's an old form of mashing. A lot of people don't do it these days because of the modified malts we have, the highly new modified malts. But it still can add some really great things to a beer if you've got the time and feel like spending the time to make it. What is it? Well, you usually start your mash. There's many different temperatures you can start at. You might start at your protein rest or something, then you'll take a third of the mash out, you boil it up, and you add it back to the mash. You might boil it for 10-15 minutes. Add it back to the mash, and that'll help you get to the next step of your mash. You can do that 2-3 times in a brew. It's not just for step mashing though. It can add a real maltiness, like you could just use a single Pilsner malt, and by the time you get to the end of the mash, because you've boiled several batches of the grain, of course it can give a darker colour, can give some sort of caramel and some real malt flavour to your beer. The boiling can help and does help break down the cell walls of the husks and things like that of the grain. They say it can bring out more proteins in that, so you get a higher efficiency and more extraction from the grain. They also say it can extract some more enzymes. I'm yet to prove that myself because it's a little bit hard at home. But you can get a higher extraction, and I did even in this brew we're just about to watch now. But also the thing to remember, when you get a little bit of a higher extraction, you're probably going to get a lower or a higher finishing gravity. So although you might get a little bit more sugars out, your beer will finish a little bit higher. And that's really what you're after anyway. You're after a little bit of malt flavour and sweetness and goodness you get from doing this method. Today I'm only doing a single decoction, which means I'm doing it once. Of course, I might try a 3 method later, but this is the first go on this system I'm using now for me. It's going to be all electric, and we're just going to give it a go. It's basically, this will be closer to the Pilsner Quell beer than my Pilsner Unreal that I made up. This is a more traditional way of brewing it. As I said, I'm only doing one step, so I am adding some Munich just to help with that multi-flavour a little bit, whereas if I probably did a triple step, I could probably just stick with the one grain, the single Pilsner malt. Anyway, that's enough talking. Let's get in and we'll watch the brew day. G'day. Today we are finally doing the decoction mash. It'll be just a simple recipe. This video will be more on the decoction process than the whole recipe, but of course I'll have a link down below for the recipe. It's a simple recipe. It's about 3.5 kilo of Wyman Pilsner malt, and I've thrown a little bit of Munich in there, about 0.8 kilo, mainly because I'm only doing a single decoction. It's the first time I've done a decoction in the Robobrew or the Brewzilla, and it's the first time I'm using my induction plate to try and do the decoction on. So I don't want to complicate it and do a triple decoction on the first go. I'm just going to do a single decoction, see how it goes, and then next time I might try a triple decoction. It's a simple Pilsner. I've also added a little bit of acidulated malt. I'm going to try to bring the pH down. Again, I'm pushing the pH low. I'm not sure where it's going to end up with this water profile. So I'm putting a little bit of acidulated and a little bit of lactic acid in from the start, and we'll just see where we pull up. I'd like to get in there under 5 pH, maybe 4.7 or 8 or something like that, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, let's get into it. Stop wasting time. I'm going to mash in, I'm going to put in 19 litres of water, which is 5 gallons to start with. I'm going to get that to about 65 degrees. I'm going to put my grain in, and we're looking for about 61 degrees for the first step. I'll be using RO water. All the salts I use and everything will be listed. So we start with 19 litres of water, or 5 gallons. It does not have to be RO water if you don't want to. You can use your usual brewing water. I just wouldn't follow the salts that I use in mine. When I drop the malt pipe in, it usually drops the temperature by a degree or 2. So I then reset the water for a little while just to make sure the temperature is up to spec. And we want a strike temperature of about 65 Celsius or 149 Fahrenheit. That is a new arm I have for the Brewzilla. I'll do a video on that shortly. Salts, very minimal salts in this. We want a nice soft water for a Pilsner. And I add rice hulls. Again, not needed. You do not need the rice hulls at all. I just thought I'd add some in. We're heading for a mash temperature of 61, so it's a good idea to drop down the temp on your Brewzilla before you mash in. It seems like a very low mash step, but trust me, it works. Some more rice hulls. Now 3.5 kilo of Pilsner and 800 grams of Munich and 300 grams of acidulated. If you weren't messing around with your water, I wouldn't add the acidulated probably. Although it does drop the pH down, which is good for a Pilsner, so that's something to look into. Of course, give it a good stir. Start the recirculation. I only do it low at the start. I'm going to pick it up a bit later if you like. And we're going to mash this at half an hour, 30 minutes. I do come back after about 5 minutes. Just give it another stir, just to make sure everything's mixed in. Halfway through the mash, I will take a little reading for my pH, just to see where it was. Put that in the fridge for a little while to cool down. And we're down 4.9. We're a bit higher than I wanted to be, but that's okay. After the half an hour, it's time to get to business. So I did give it a bit of a stir. Now I worked it out at about 4 litres. You mainly want to take the grain. This leaves a lot of liquid behind and all your enzymes that are still mashing away there and doing their job. You do need enough liquid so you can get a boil, of course. Some people use strainers to get the grist out, or the mash out. So I took about 4 litres, which is about 4 quarts. It's actually not far off a gallon. And of course, when you're heating things up, you need to keep stirring so it doesn't burn on the bottom. The last thing you want to do is burn it. I set my timer. It's 15 minutes. The induction plate took a little bit to get up to boil. I didn't want to start on full because I didn't want to burn it. So I was starting at about 75% power. I was on about a 7. And it eventually got to boil. But it got to boil. So I left it there for the 15 minutes. I won't show it all here. I might whack it on the Patreon. If people want to see it, let me know. You can see there is a slight colour change there. We're just about ready to go. off on it. So that's about 15 minutes now. It took a little while to get to the boil, so I'll just go for another few minutes. I'll just turn that down again. Turn it down to 2 even, just to keep that hot. And I'll move the camera so we can see what we're doing. Let's turn this off. I think that takes a while to cool down, that fan noise. Get it back into here. Now I'll set the Robobrew to 68. I'll just mix that in a bit. Distribute that heat around a bit. Turn the pump up while I do this, just to get that temperature distributed quicker. I have a feeling it would take a while, you know, for the bottom to get hot as well, where the pump's coming from. 63, 64. Yes, it's getting up there. I mean, that, of course, adding that 4 litres of boiling would have to make a difference, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to even out. Let's turn it up. I might turn it up and just give it a good stir. Should have measured in here, I guess, shouldn't I? And then now I'll put all the cool wort on top. I wouldn't worry too much. That'll catch up. I'll just turn it up for a second. 66. 60. It's going up. I don't know if you can see that. 65. So it's going up. 66. I probably should have left that cool wort down the bottom. Probably would have been a better call just to leave that hot mash on top, stir it into the top, and leave the cool wort down below until the Robobrew caught up. But it'll be fine. Or 68. Have to mash out. Looking very nice. Now sometimes after Sparge I find I didn't have quite enough, or it's going really slow at the end. So I just added a little bit more, just to get up to my 30 litres where I want it to be for pre-boil. I can lift the top up and check. Just have a quick look. Sometimes you can look down the side, other times I'll lift it up and have a quick look. I know I'm nearly there. It's time to start getting it to the boil. It looks pretty good. Looks like any other mash really, doesn't look much different. I was a little bit under, only just. Now I recirc through a sieve just because it's a different method. I want to see how much junk I can catch. I turn it off before it gets to the boil though. Finally at the boil, take a reading, throw in my hops for 70 grams, and that's for 60 minutes. It's a little bit up. And with 20 minutes to go, throw in the rest of my hops. Another 30 grams. Rest of my boil salts, again, it's not very much. "15 minutes to go, take some wort out and put my usual things in. PVP, Werflock, and some yeast nutrient. I was going to use half a tablet, I decided to use a full one. Give it a good stir and pour it back in to the kettle. This is a no-chill recipe. Again, it's a very hot day. I was going to chill it, but when I saw the weather, it's going to be no-chill. Now when you're adding only a 20-minute addition and a 60-minute addition, it does not matter. You don't even have to adjust your recipe for no-chill, especially in a beer like this. After the boil, I let the wort sit for 10 minutes to clear, and you can see how clear the wort is. I then clear out the pump by just disposing of a little bit of the wort, and I'll fill my cube. Fill up the cube, I've got just enough. That's brew day over.
Well, that went extremely smoothly. I'm really happy with that brew day. My numbers are up. I don't like my numbers being up, but better up than down. You know what I mean? So I hit my numbers, I smashed my numbers. Everything went easy. The only thing that stalled the day today was I couldn't get the boil on in time for me to go and pick up my daughter from school. So that had to wait a while. So I left it here at 95 degrees for about an hour and a half before I come back home and then put it to the boil and continued on with the brew. But everything is fine. As you saw, I didn't lose much during that of evaporation. I don't think that explains the whole lot of the numbers. I was just up on my numbers. I didn't expect it. But I'm really happy, really happy. I'm going to put this video out before we wait for the review, because, you know, it's going to be a proper Pilsner. I should let it age for, you know, 4 weeks or something, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, till it tastes good. It's going to be fermented under pressure, of course, not very much pressure, 1 bar or something, you know, 10, 15 psi. But that'll help it along, but I still want to give it time to lager. That's what you do lagers for, or Pilsners. The only thing I was disappointed about today was that I no-chilled it. I was planning on chilling it, as I've probably mentioned already, but the weather and time just got away from me, so a no-chill was fine. There wasn't any late hops, so everything, you know, I didn't have to change anything. So I could just put it in the cube, which is on the ground behind me somewhere. I don't know if you can see it. Down there. My stand's in the way. You probably can, but I just can't. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, all that sort of stuff. Thank you to my Patreons. Become a Patreon. It really, really helps me. YouTube don't pay anything. You think they do, but they don't. The Patreon thing really helps me along. I think I can continue to do this stuff. That's about it until we get to the tasting. Oh, I might throw some footage on the end, because this probably won't be uploaded by the time I pitch yeast. I'll let this night just in the garage, I think. In the morning, I'll get up, I'll put it in the fermentation fridge, at about probably 15 degrees. I think I'll pitch yeast. I'm using S189. So when by lunchtime tomorrow, probably, I'll be ready to pitch in a fermenter. I can clean one of the fermenters and sanitize, get everything ready, whack it in. I'll do that tomorrow. I'm planning on the fermentation not to take too long. It shouldn't with lagers and pilsners, as long as you pitch enough yeast. It's all about the yeast. You don't have to ferment at 8 degrees or whatever that is in Fahrenheit. I'll put it on the screen. You can push it, especially when you're a little bit under pressure. You can get it to the mid to highs, the highs of their range, the good range, not the whole range. Now I'm starting to rave on. It doesn't matter. I'm going to whack it in about 15 degrees, and then once it kicks off after a few hours, I'll drop it down a couple of points, let it there go for about 4 or 5 days, and then I'll raise it up again at the end. That's the plan anyway. I'll update you with the tasting and how it all went later. Cheers. Oh, I should go cheers. This is a Quake Hazy. I just kegged and I rock and rolled it, and oh my god, it tastes good. And I'm serious. It's going to be one of my signature beers, or I'm going to put a name to it. I don't put proper names to many of my beers, but this is impressing me so much at the moment that it's going to get a name. It's beer and it tastes good. Cheers. I just thought I'd throw this on the end. I used the siphon for transfer on this particular day. A bit of a crook shoulder. I did that instead of lifting it. I then remembered that I've had this tilt sitting here for months and months and months, and I might as well throw it in. For a couple of reasons, but people often don't believe me with my ferment times. Now I am using lager yeast. I used 3 packets because I had 3 packets. 2 packets will get it done, but I prefer the flavour of a lager from a big starter, like a 4-litre starter, or even 3 to 4 packs of yeast. Yes, you'll get a fine ferment without them, but they taste much better with a nice strong ferment lagers, in my opinion. And you can see the tilt floating there. I will go into detail about this ferment in another video, probably when I do the tasting or the tilt video. But basically, I pitched yeast at 15. It was there for about 6 hours or so. Then I dropped it down to 13, where it sat for about 4 days until I knew the SG was below 1020. But as I always said, and as I said in the video, it's 4 or 5 days. I tell by the Krausen, and then I'll take a reading. Once I see the Krausen going, I know it's about time. Anyway, I've talked about that many times in my videos, and that's how I did it. And as soon as it got to under 1020, and then I bumped it up to 15 degrees. It was just about for the whole day. And then before I went to bed, I bumped it up to 17 degrees. I left it there for a day, or nearly 2 days, and I noticed it was just about finished. It was at 15, was sort of flicking between 15 and 14 from my force ferment I did. I knew it would finish at 14. I'll go into that detail in another video. So it was pitched on a Saturday afternoon, and by the next Friday afternoon, it's done. I'm going to leave it there for another day, just for insurance. That's a lager, hardly under any pressure. It's not the pressure that did this ferment. It's not any special temperatures. It's just a normal ferment when you've got strong yeast. Can't wait to taste it. Cheers.